And it's not to scare anyone, but I have lost everyone. I have lost my entire family with a small hope for a faraway cousin that I keep in my head, like maybe one day we will reconnect. I have lost all of my friends when I started getting these boundaries in my life. And the only advice that I would give is grieve. Take the time to grieve, because losing someone, a friend, family member, it's you need time to get over that. And yes, it is very hard, but it's
Welcome, Alexandra from Sicily, for joining us here today. Thank you for
thank you.
taking the time out. And please tell us a little bit about your journey yourself. Where did it all start and how's it all going?
Okay, thanks so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here. Where should I start? Oh gosh. So I'm a coach. I've always been a coach, basically since the moment that I was born, even if the label didn't exist at that time. But it's really something that is written in my DNA. So it's not something that I do as a job. It is really a part of who I am. I know this sounds very cliche, but it is for some people very true. I've specialized over the years because I've done a lot of different work, different jobs in the corporate world, going from sales to customer service to different parts, but always about coaching, always about making people like see how valuable they are and see their real competences and skills. And that's something that other people tell you, but you yourself, you're like, yeah, I think I'm good at this, but I don't know how much. So I'm always the person who is there to say, this is your super talent. This is just go for it, invest in it. And that's my kind of coaching. And so after all of these years working in different companies, some very good, others a little bit more toxic, I learned, of course, a lot. And I just went to be like, okay, I will start my own coaching business. And I will focus on, well, basically what I went through, which is everything that has to do with people pleasing, overachieving, being hyper independent, and all of these childhood survival mechanisms that I absolutely needed as a child because I come from a dysfunctional family. And yeah, I thought, you know what? I've done the work, I got through it, and I want to help other people get through it as well, because your life is so much different, so much better once you get rid of all of these things you needed back then as a child, because yeah, you didn't know what was going on, and you couldn't say to your parents, listen, I'm going to set a boundary here and hear me out. That's not what happens when you're a child, right? And so this is what I do with my clients. I focus on the people pleasing behavior, and we try to dissect it, like where does it come from? Is it maybe family related or is it work related? Like some people really develop people pleasing because they had different jobs, and in all of these jobs they were confronted with managers who were really not, how can I say this? Well, let's just keep the word dysfunctional. That's the best. And they kind of lost their self confidence, and they kind of lost sight on what they're so good at because they had so much negative feedback. And so, yeah, that is what we do. Not quick fixes, not like just try this, say this, and then everything will be okay. I don't believe in instant magic. It doesn't work. It's yeah, if you want to change your behavior, it takes time. It doesn't take years, but it just takes a little bit of time. And that is what I do. I don't know
And
if I answered your question.
You
But
definitely. And I'm curious, does it like so people pleasing, does it you've just said it doesn't always start in childhood. It can come from just the way you work and that style of life. But is there that difference between people pleasing? Oh, well, there is a difference. How do we differentiate between people pleasing and being kind or being a good person? How do we?
Yeah. The main difference is when you're kind, it means you have boundaries. And the big thing, I will flip it just to make it more clear. When you're people pleasing, you don't have boundaries. You just go as far as you can to then get to the result that you want, and that result is often being understood, being loved, being not taken for granted. And when you're kind, it is like an energy that comes from you to the other person, but you don't expect anything in return. You're just kind. You do a kind thing, but it's not with a purpose. People pleasing is really, it's like dopamine. It's something that you do, and that's why it's also addictive. I always say to my people pleasers, guys, don't forget, we are addicted. This is really like a chemical reaction in your body, and we need to try to dim it so that it doesn't take over everything. Because the more you people please, the more people say like, oh, I think you're great. And when you're kind, you don't want specifically people to tell you, oh, you're so great. No, because you're just being kind. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm really curious if we can come back to the situation of the workplace, because in my time in various roles, I have seen and acted in that way multiple times. I'm just wondering what are strategies, or I guess what are the tools that somebody would employ being in let's just call it dysfunctional workplaces, where there's a real need, a real kind of subtle undercurrent for the team to really just do as they're told, and where feedback is not always welcome, or where certain, like undercurrents, we could say technically feedback is welcome, but the real attitude, the real feeling that is felt in the room from everyone in the team is that feedback is really not welcome, and the expectation on the team is just to, for lack of a better word, just to do as they're told. How do you bring your boundaries? How do you bring your personality in a healthy space and still keep your job?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to ask. And do you want to keep your job or not? Because that's the starting point. The first thing I want to know is how badly do you want to keep this job? Like, how important is it for any reason? Financial reasons, family stability reasons, because you cannot move out, because you have kids and maybe your partner, whatever it is. So the first thing to know is, how badly do you want to keep it? And that refocuses your energy to, or your focus, to be honest, to, okay, this is important because of this, because financially I don't have any other solution right now. Or, and that is what happens in most cases, well, it is important right now, but maybe I can do something else. So I try to first get perspective, like go in a helicopter and say like, well, let's look at the context here. How much is this serving you, and how much do you need it? Once we have that, let's say that the easy part is when the person discovers, okay, I'm going to stick around just looking for another job. When I find something else, I'm gone. That's the easy part. The tougher part is when you're really stuck for personal reasons and you think, okay, I need, like you said, boundaries, or I need strategies to cope with what is going on. And you also just mentioned it, boundaries are the keys, because without boundaries, you will just suffer. Mental suffering is horrible in toxic workplaces. And as you said, in many places, what a boss is asking is just execute, don't ask any questions, and deliver. And I've been there. And I know how tough it is when you have values and when you believe in teamwork, in collaborating, in making the best effort, or just trying to reach for even better goals, and your managers tells you like, yeah, but that's not what I asked. I just asked you to do this one thing, so just do this. So what we do then is we work on boundaries regarding yourself, knowing like how far can I go, until what point, what is my limits? Like if I go further than this limit, I will suffer from it. And if I stay in this zone, then I will be okay. The best boundaries are not the boundaries that are written in marble or fixed in marble. I don't know how you say it, but they are the ones who are who allow a little bit of flexibility. So you start with one boundary, but that doesn't mean that in 1 or 2 months you will have the same boundary. So I usually advise to take a boundary that is quite large, and then month after month or day after day try to narrow it down to create like more safety for yourself. It could be, to give an example, to be more practical and concrete about this, it could be about a communication with your manager. So if this manager is something that occurs a lot, because a lot of managers are not really trained in communicating with their team. They're very good at their job. They know what they want to achieve, and they know that they have a team, but they don't always have a lot of communication skills. So what you can do and start is just give your manager your boundaries regarding communication. Like saying, you know, what really motivates me is when you tell me this, because then I just want to go and do my job in the best way. And that's what I need every day, or every Monday, for example, or every Friday at the end of the week. Like this helps me. On the other side, what doesn't really help me and what tends to make me disengage a little bit with the job and with you is when you say this and this and this. So it's not about blaming the person about his communication. It's more saying like, this is what helps me, this is what boosts me, and this is what slows me down. And in the end, what we want is that I do the best work for you so that you can shine, right? That is what most bosses in toxic workplaces want to do, shine. And so just try to create a boundary and say like, this is the way and this is how I like to communicate. Not micromanagement is one of those examples. I had a lot of micromanagers, so I know what it is. When you tell a person, like I told one of my last bosses, listen, if you come and look over my shoulder and look at my screen every 30 minutes, I don't feel very confident because I feel that you want to control me. And your intention is maybe to help me and to tell me like, oh no, this is not important, you should focus on something else. But that's not how it feels. So just trying to reframe between what he's trying to do or she's trying to do and how you feel about it. And sometimes that is just enough. And people get it and think, oh, okay, not every 30 minutes. Did I really do it every 30 minutes? Oh my God. Like they become aware of what they're doing. And then you can say, for people who don't really immediately understand it, say it like, just check in with me like at 10 a.m. I have a quick break, we can get a coffee quickly, and I can tell you what I've been doing. So give them always partly what doesn't work for you, and always like a solution, like, but if we go and take a coffee at the coffee machine, I can tell you on the way everything that I've been doing, so that they don't feel like restricted. They don't feel like I cannot do my job and I cannot check out what you're doing. Help them out. That's the most important.
So what I'm hearing is communication, right? And what I have also seen, both in personal and observational situations, is having the confidence to be able to have that conversation with your manager every time those boundaries have been crossed. So firstly, as you say, define your boundaries, which I think some of us may struggle to do in the first place. And then secondly, have the confidence to have that conversation with your manager and not immediately put the filter on, well, if I tell my boss what to do, that I'm automatically going to get fired. And one thing I have seen in this space is that more mature workers, people, human beings tend to be a little bit better at that than young people. What are your thoughts about that?
Completely agree. Two things about that. For one, what you said is absolutely true, because the more managers you deal with, the more types of situations you've seen, and the more that you know where the boundary is. Even if you've never said it out loud, you just feel it, you know it, because you have all of this experience. I remember when I was working for a communication company in Belgium, I had a colleague who was close to retiring, and he always told me, like, what are you worrying about? Like, he doesn't, like, your manager doesn't care. In 5 minutes he will have forgotten. And so that helps enormously to have someone with experience next to you telling you, like, calm down, you're young, you want to do everything immediately, it will turn out just fine. Second thing I wanted to say is, don't underestimate the new generations, because I'm a millennial, and we absolutely struggle with boundaries. That's one of our things. We're very good at other things, but boundaries are not, it's not in our top 3 of best skills. But the generations that I see coming are much more, I wouldn't say maybe confident, but they are less afraid to say, hey, this is not working out for me. So I am not at all preoccupied or worried about the future of the workplace, because I see those younger ones, and I see that everything that I held back for 10 years in these companies, they just say day 2. And I think, wow, I would never have had the courage to say this on day 2. But by doing it, they immediately say until there, and then just stop, respect me, I will respect you. And that's a healthy boundary. And that's how you can really, from the start, create something valuable. Because millennials like me, we tended to wait 6 months. And then after 6 months, we were like, okay, now the company knows who I am. So I can say that, in fact, I'm not okay with this and this and this and this. But people don't work like that, right? When you talk about for 6 months, like, yeah, I'm perfectly okay with doing this. And then after 6 months, you're like, no, in fact, I was never okay, but I never said it.
Yeah.
People look at you like, what is going on?
A pattern gets created that you have to break.
Absolutely. And you have to build. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, this is all really great advice. And I do think what stands out from what you're saying as well is that those managers that we're speaking about, they're human too. So when you're, like you said, they're coming and checking over your shoulder every 30 minutes. Actually, when you turn around and say to them, well, actually, that doesn't work for me, they're like, oh, they're taken by surprise. Or, an example of that happens all the time. People just need to be told in a respectful way. And I think that's also where maybe the struggle could be. It's like, how do you maintain that polite boundary way without sounding, because sometimes it comes across defensive, I feel. Like, I'm thinking of myself here when I'm trying to put a boundary in place, because I've also got the people pleasing thing. I feel like when I say something, it comes across like I'm being defensive. So it's watching that tone and how we are saying something, because we have every right to say it. So the defensiveness needs to be, how do we get rid of that?
Well, the thing is, I'm very happy that you call it defensiveness, because that shows that you have already been thinking about it. Because most people who start out and think like, oh, maybe I am people pleasing, they call it guilt. And they say like, yeah, but I feel so guilty when I put a boundary that I prefer to stay with the guilt and not put the boundary and just keep everybody happy, and I will be unhappy, but that's okay. I will pay that price. And when you label it as defensiveness, you're a little bit further, because defending is more like, yeah, but I do want to. This is important to me. This matters to me. So I would say that's really good. I love to hear defensiveness. And defensiveness is just, it comes from guilt, and it will, the more you practice boundaries, the less this feeling of defensiveness will rise up. It's just the same as with kids. I don't have kids, but I was in a relationship before where I had, well, my ex-partner had two small children, 2 years old and 4 years old. And the first time that I had to set a boundary, I was like, whew, was this okay? These were not even my kids, but I knew that what they were doing was not okay. And we tend to go into 1,000 questions about the existence of the cosmos when we put a boundary, which is absolutely not necessary. We just need to focus on what is the boundary, what is exactly what I need. Do I feel defensive? Do I feel guilty? Probably, but that doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean that it doesn't come up. It comes up. It just means that I don't have to give it all of my attention, because my attention is going to my boundary. And I know that my guilt, this feeling of thinking like, oh, they will think that I'm defending something or whatever it is, put that aside. With time, you will see that the more you practice and the more boundaries that you set, the less you will think about that. And the more you will think about, this is my boundary. And how can I just say it? Just in a nice way. Some people like to make jokes, joke around. Just say like, hey, this is like how you like to have your coffee. Well, I'm like to have my coffee in a different way. It doesn't have to be something heavy. It doesn't have to be an attack. It doesn't have to be something that you say that will change the world and stop the war in Iran or the United States. It doesn't have to be all of this. It doesn't have to be this heavy. It just means, listen, this is your point of view. This is how it comes across. This is how I feel. Let's fix it. And managers like the word fixing things, because then fixing leads to being more productive. So I always thought, when I was dealing with these micromanagers, always looking over my shoulder, like he had an eye on every screen that I opened. He was behind my back, even without me knowing. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, do you not trust me? And I was young at the time. I was 27, 28. I had just come out of 5 years of being a teacher, where nobody ever looked around at any screen, because there weren't any screens. So I was just teaching, and that was it. And one day I remember I was so fed up with this. The fact that he was always watching me and always like, what is she doing? Is she going on Facebook? Which I never did, but okay. I was just checking out some things because I didn't understand how it was all coming together in this company. It was quite mysterious. And I just told him, like, you know what? Every time that I don't know that you're behind me, I just feel like scared all of the time. Like, woof, you're there. And I don't want to feel like that. I just want to focus on my job. So when you want to talk with me, just come to me and tell me hello. Then I know that you're there. And that takes away a lot of anxiety for me. And I made a joke about it. I don't remember how I said it. I think I used like a silly thing from the Scream movies. Like with the telephone, like, hi, it's me again, or I don't remember what it is. And he laughed about it, and I laughed. And I thought, this is better, because the tension is down. I can just tell you that this is not helping me, and I can now move forward with my other boundaries, because of course this was not the only problem that I was having with this micromanager. But so
I think it's interesting because as you're telling me that story, I'm trying to put myself in the position of that manager. And we're talking about confidence in, well, all kinds of people, but, being able to set your own boundaries and communicate them. But in that particular example and other examples, I'm sure, in real life, quite often managers and supervisors also need a little bit of boundaries and confidence to be able to have those kinds of conversations with their staff early on to say, look, this is how I work, or this is what I expect, or, how does your style fit into this style? And quite often, detracting a little bit, but in the job application processes, we're often looking at education, we're often looking at experience in previous positions, but we're never often looking at the personalities in an official capacity, and we're not really testing whether somebody is going to be a good fit in a more kind of a deeper scientific process. We're kind of sort of saying, well, let's just see how the interview goes. If it goes well and this person's had a good day and we have a laugh, then we fit, but we're not really addressing the ways in which we function, in the way that we approach problem solving, in the way that we get curious about one another.
And
Absolutely.
Just wanted to quickly add to what you were saying as well, was that the way to speak to them, what I heard was not making it into this big deal. Making it into this big deal is when you come across defensive, or you get that tone, or that facial expressions that make you feel like you've done it wrong. But just like this is just how you feel, and that's the key for me. But sorry, continue on with what Barb was saying.
No, it's really true. And I didn't, what I'm saying now is after having this experience 5-6 times, because the first 5-6 times I did it with such, I will say, I was even aggressive. I was just like, what are you doing? Why are you standing here? I was just immediately reacting because I felt unsafe. I felt controlled. Yeah. And it's only because I was repeatedly in the same situation that at one point I thought, wait, it is a relationship. So it was a man, so it's his responsibility, but also mine. So what can I do to make it better? What does he want? What does he like? Oh, he likes the word fixing, and he likes the word control. So if I can, it's not manipulation, it's just trying to understand what is important for the other one and bring it into the words that you're using to make them understand that, in fact, we have the same goal. We want the same thing, but to reach it, we have different styles. And with experience, you can also show that even if you have different styles, you can reach the same destination. You can reach the same goal. And what matters most of the time for managers, it's not how you get there, it's just get it done. And so that's what I try to focus on. But again, not the first time, not the second time, for sure not the third time. That was a complete disaster. But by being there, and this is also why I like to coach. It's because I made all of the mistakes that you can make. And I had like a solid background with my family of also, basically this toxic workflow, or everything that you can experience with a manager. I've had it with my parents. So I had like already a lot of experience, I thought, but family and work, they are the same, and at the same time, they're completely different.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to shift into, actually, was with family, because I do believe most of the time people pleasing would probably come from that. So how do difficult family dynamics shape the way that we see ourselves and the way that, we relate to others later on in life?
Okay, so the thing is, you have what I call healthy families and what I call dysfunctional families. In a healthy family, that I would call my grandmother's philosophy, the love that you receive as a child is unconditional. Doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want without any consequence. It just means that however badly you screwed up, the love is still there. They still think at the end of the day, oh my gosh, what happened? But I have so much love for this child, and we will just try again tomorrow. That is for me a healthy family. Doesn't mean that nothing goes wrong. It just means that at the end of the day, love wins and stays present. Again, really my definition, it's really very personal. A dysfunctional family, when you're a child in a dysfunctional family, you need to do things to receive love, to receive even attention before love. So that was my situation. And when I just existed, let's say it like this, I didn't receive any attention, and I certainly didn't receive any love. So I learned quite quickly, and you know how kids pick up things even when they cannot, when they're just, when they're so young that they cannot verbalize what they want, they understand so much of what is going on. I understood that if I wasn't exceptional at something, anything really, I wouldn't get attention, and attention would get me love and, well, I hoped respect, but I don't think I ever got the respect. So you tend to start people pleasing because, as I said, it is like dopamine. You get a reward. I used to, it goes from small things to bigger things. I used to clean my father's car without him knowing it, just to please him. And the thing is, in a dysfunctional family, the car is never as clean as your father would like it to be. So you get criticism, so you get bad attention, and you don't receive love. So it's very complicated. It also goes into everything that has to do with school and education. I am very bad at mathematics. Really, like if you think that you cannot add some numbers up, I'm the worst. But I understood that it was very important for my parents, because for them, if you are good at mathematics, it means you're smart, and it means you will be successful in life. That's their philosophy. So good at mathematics means good marriage, means good career, means good life. So until I was 30, I thought, that's what I need to do. I need to get better at mathematics. The problem is, when you don't have that talent, quite complicated. So you develop a lot of behaviors to try to manage and to show that you're good at mathematics without being good at it. I don't know if you know what I mean.
I do.
But okay. I maybe a fellow friend.
Yeah, you compensate a lot for the lacking behaviors, and I'm just thinking about that in my own perspective. There's always been a heavy emphasis as well on doing well at school. You compensate. For me, particularly, it was compensating with sports. So I was never quite good at school in high school, but I was good at sports. Later on, I realized that I really just didn't have a passion for anything that I was being taught at school. And when I went on to tertiary education, university, etc., I fell in love with education, and everything just came smoothly. But in high school, I masked that behavior with sports, and it was never really good enough.
It was never really good enough for you or for your parents?
For my parents.
Okay. And how did they react when they found out, like, oh, he's not good at what we want him to be good at?
Yeah, I mean, they were very persistent to begin with. They just felt that all they really needed to do was get more tutors, to yell louder, to push harder. But none of those things had the outcome that they wanted. So in the end, they kind of just gave up. And
okay.
And it was interesting because I felt when they gave up on that, they also gave up on a whole bunch of other things that, you know, a parent should probably continue to care about with their kids. So love was very dependent on those outcomes in a family sense. And if you didn't get those outcomes because you were being compared to your cousins, to your neighbors, to the aunties, sisters, dogs, then love was removed in a greater sense, which then for me, and this is being me quite honest and raw here with you on camera, but what then that led to is a separation of internally. I then realized that, look, what matters to me, that does what other people think what matters to me, or does what I think about me matter to me? And very early on, I started to make that separation, that my opinion and my performance is the one that matters to me. You know, you, at the end of the day, you look yourself in the mirror and you say, have I done a good job? Have I done the best? Have I had the right outcomes? Have I achieved the things that I set out to achieve? And as long as you can say, yeah, or I've taken a solid step towards it, that's all that matters. But that comes out of those experiences.
And just quickly to add, I would say that was going to be a question for you as well, just based on what Mart's saying, is sometimes that similar experience, one leads to people pleasing and the other leads to, like, I wouldn't consider Bart a people pleaser. I do think he does always make sure that his boundaries are intact, well, most of the time, in terms of in personal life anyway, you know.
Personal life.
In personal life, yeah. So I guess is that an outcome you've seen in your experience, that it can come out in two different ways?
Absolutely. It's just the thing you talk about is, to me, is finding your own value, is finding your own self-worth that is not depending on others. And if you grow up in a healthy family, if you try to have this conversation with someone who grew up with love, with everything, let's say, perfect, they will be like, of course you're confident. Of course you don't care what other people think. And you're like, no. I had to go through war. I had to go to do the 3 movies of Lord of the Rings to battle everything, to then at the end think, okay, wait, it doesn't depend on others. It has to come from me. And now I feel the confidence. And it is like a very quiet type of energy that takes over, instead of this constant pressure of, I need to deliver, because if I don't, I will not even get attention. Like, my parents will not even look at me, or worse, they will try to say that I'm a loser, or like my parents always said, like, oh, she's so stupid, but at least she's trying. I mean, this kind of things that linger in your head for years. And I think with people pleasing, I always say, guys, it's not the end of the world. It is a behavior. You've used it in your childhood because you had nothing else and you did well. And it takes a lot of courage as a child to keep on pushing yourself to get somewhere, whether it's sports or not sports or mathematics or whatever it is. It takes a lot of gut to keep on going, to get to that 5 minutes of attention, or just that tiny hug that you could get from your parents. And it makes you a tough person. And in the end, this behavior, when you're an adult, I don't like the word flipping, because you don't flip a behavior in my vocabulary, but you can try to see it from a different point of view and see it as something that belongs to the past, but that just has some lingering things, like some ways of reacting to certain situations that in fact you're still doing and are not great, but you're still doing it and you're trying to get rid of it. But nobody tells you, hey, you're a people pleaser. Like, I don't know how it happens with your friends, but I never said to any of my friends, hey, you're a people pleasing, just stop it. Nope. Nobody tells us, because we're being pleased. So we just think like, oh, that's nice, thank you.
Or
So
it comes across in certain ways. Like my daughter, she's told me, she goes, I've realized that I say sorry all the time for things that I'm not sorry for. Like I start my sentences with sorry. And I said, it's really good that you've observed that so that you can start to switch that. But thinking back, I did that a lot too. Like you just say sorry as I think that's a people pleasing one.
oh
People
gosh,
thing, it's like sorry, like you're constantly being a bother, which obviously isn't the case. But
Yeah.
I would like to know, so when someone starts or changes that perspective, like you said, and they start to set those boundaries, how do the people around them react, or do they resist that change? Does that
always.
automatically say that again?
It's always resistance.
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
you're in a good relationship or a bad relationship, the first thing as humans, when something changes, what we want to do is resist the change. Whether it's a good
Yes.
change or a bad change, we always say like, no, I'm not having this. And that's not important. That doesn't matter. That's what I always like emphasize 1,000 times. It doesn't matter that the people you're setting boundaries with first resist the boundary. That's normal. That's not an it doesn't indicate anything. It just means that they're not robots. So it's just a normal human reaction. So just don't pay any attention to it, even if it is very hard. Take the resistance, put it aside, and then continue. That is really super important, because if you stop because you see resistance, you will never set any boundary. Because whether you come from a healthy family or a dysfunctional one, always resistance is guaranteed. It comes with a package of boundaries.
Yes.
But the thing is, what happens next? How long does the resistance last? That is one of the things that I covered in one of my videos. A big difference between I had a very good friend. Well, I still have him, and he had the same kind of dysfunctional families, and we found ourselves in the same spot at the same moment, talking over sushi about the fact that we both had set a boundary. We both had the resistance, like, no, we don't accept your boundary. What is this? You will do as you are told. And we both decided we will continue, because this resistance is normal. Okay, so let's continue. And what happened to him and to me is completely different. So to me, no surprise. I continued saying like, this is my boundary, this is my limit. And my parents kept on saying, we don't accept your limit, because you're not here on this planet to set limits. We don't accept that. So my parents are like, forget about it. It will never change. But for my friend, the opposite happened. His parents, after setting the boundary and defending it, they stopped, and they switched from resistance to, wait, why? They wanted to know why it was so important. They asked him like 1,000 questions, because they really wanted to understand why this was so important. And that is the first step. So I would say, don't focus on the resistance, focus on what happens right after it. Do people keep on pushing you back, or do they come with questions? Because the questions are the first indicator that something good is coming after it.
And also, like you said, you've got two different reactions. One from your parents was not maybe the reaction you would have liked, but at the end of the day, you've walked away with that self-respect. And so creating that boundary for you maybe wasn't always going to be, or shouldn't maybe always be dependent on the other person, because at the end of the day, now you get to walk away with that respect.
Absolutely. And he got to walk away with a whole new relationship with his parents, in which he was no longer seen as the child who has to execute everything that his parents say. It's incredible, but this boundary that he set made his parents realize, oh, in fact, now he's an adult. He's our child, and we love him, but he's an adult. He needs to make his own decisions now, and we will support him through his decisions. And that was an amazing breakthrough. And I remember the moment that I just have goosebumps talking about this. I remember when we came back to the same spot 2 months later, eating the same sushi, and he told me that. And I was just so overwhelmed and so happy for him, because it showed me as a coach, it can go different ways and you never know. And even if your parents or your boss has said no, and I don't accept the resistance and blah, blah, blah for ages, it doesn't mean that it will always be like this. Some people have the ability to open up their minds and say, wait, let me understand this better. Why? And oh, this matters to you, and I can see it. And they suddenly get out of their roles, their character, and they just go back to love, and they really see you. And that's the beauty of being human.
And the other thing I've really noticed with boundaries too, and again, this might be a barrier for some people when setting them, is when you set those boundaries and you get that initial pushback through your own experiences or ones you've observed, you might lose people. And for somebody who might be on this journey for the first time, that might be a scary thought, because for some people, those people might be parents. For some people, those people might be partners. They might be close friends they've had since, a great example is since primary school. But obviously, people change along the way, and we all change. We all grow. Well, some of us go backwards as people, and not always together. And when you make that decision to be authentic with yourself, to have a boundary with yourself, a lot of people, as you say, will give resistance. They'll be probably curious about why you are setting this boundary, and they'd want to come along on that journey. But there might be some people along that journey that you may lose. Now, as a more mature human being, you can look at that objectively and you can say, well, you know what? So be it. Maybe this person hasn't served me, and maybe I've outgrown them, or they've outgrown me, and maybe it's time to part ways. But I think that takes a little bit of getting used to. I think that it takes a little bit of confidence, a little bit of growth. And what advice could you give to somebody who's, I guess, trying it for the first time?
I would give the advice that it's inevitable. You will lose people, because you cannot expect that the group that you're interacting with without boundaries will be the same as a group that accepts your boundaries and is okay with updating the version that they have of you in their heads. Not everyone is capable of it. And it's not to scare anyone, but I have lost everyone. I have lost my entire family, with a small hope for a faraway cousin that I keep in my head, like maybe one day we will reconnect. I have lost all of my friends when I started getting these boundaries in my life. And the only advice that I would give is grieve. Take the time to grieve, because losing someone, a friend, family member, you need time to get over that. And yes, it is very hard, but it's not the end of the world. I'm not such a fan of everything that is being said on internet, like when you lose someone, it opens a door for someone else. I'm not a fan of it, because it looks like you're just replacing people with other people, or like there is some magical solution and this was always the bigger idea. I don't really believe in that. I'm more grounded and with my 2 feet on, just standing there and thinking, no, this is not good. I don't feel good about this, but it is what I need, because I can choose. I can choose to have respect for myself and to keep my boundary and to keep friends that respect my boundaries. Or I can choose to not have any boundaries and to keep people that in fact think more maybe about themselves than about the boundaries that matter to me. So what does that say about our relationship? So that is usually what helps me get through it. But I allow myself to really grieve and to say, okay, I need some time to get over this because this is heavy for me. This is not just taking one person and saying, like, okay, goodbye, and let's just start with someone new. It doesn't work like that for me. But grieving has an incredible power of showing you what is really important. And it will give you so much experience the next time you meet someone, and you will put boundaries faster and easier, and you will identify more quickly who is someone that will respect your boundaries and who is someone who just doesn't give about it from the start. And so this grieving helps you come closer to the people that really will feed you and will really help you grow as a person. So it does have a lot of benefits. It's just that you cannot have the benefit without the grieving and without the hard parts. But
Yeah.
that's for everything in life.
Absolutely. And I wonder, like, so to speak to a child or the younger version of yourself or just children these days, what advice would you have so that the people pleasing is already, or the boundaries are already put in place?
I think children are children, and you do what you can. And a child is, I think, not mature enough until a certain age, of course, to really understand what is going on. And I would say just let them live, let them people please or not, make mistakes or not, let them experience what is necessary. And then when they come to an age in which they realize, like, wait, why am I saying sorry all the time? Why am I apologizing all the time? Why am I over explaining 10,000 times what I need when in fact one time was enough? Then you have an opportunity to say something, because then they have already identified that something is going maybe in a different way than for other people. And then you can start, well, working is maybe not the right term, but you can start exchanging, sharing, talking with them, and helping them to stop saying sorry. And this sorry story is funny that you mention it, because I used to be someone who said sorry a million times a day. And it came to a point when I was 16. I played badminton. I had my very best friend who was also my badminton partner. And so we were on the court and we played once a week, and we always played doubles because then we could play together and it was so cool. And at one point, so I was saying sorry for everything. I dropped the shuttle, I missed the point, whatever it was, sorry. For years, he had been hearing my sorry, not just at school, not just when we were hanging out, but also on the court. At one point, I will never forget, he just dropped his racket and he looked at me with such rage in his eyes. And he told me, if I hear you say one more time sorry during this game, I will never ever talk to you again, because this needs to stop.
Yeah.
I was, and I didn't even realize at that point, I was 16. I had no idea that I had been saying sorry all the time. I remember I had to sit down and I told him, okay. And I dared ask him, like, did I say sorry? I didn't even notice it. And he said, you've said it for every damn move that you made today, and not just today, these last years, and I'm not having it anymore. That was a very strong boundary. And I was not at all prepared. That moment, I said, okay, it was too much for me. No one had ever said this to me. And anyway, I was completely overwhelmed. I said, you know what? I called the girl that was sitting on the bench and I said, take my place. I went home. I had to bike home, which was the best thing that ever happened to me, was to bike. Because when you have the wind in your face, it's cold, and you're just biking, and it's like 30 minutes just alone with your thoughts. You're like, oh my God, what
processing. Yeah.
Totally. And I thought, he's completely right. I am saying sorry for everything in my life. And it is not just damaging him, it is damaging my relationship with him, and it is damaging myself. Yeah. And then I came home and I said to my mother, you know what just happened? Like, I told her everything. And she said, yeah, that's just normal. You apologize because you do everything wrong. And I went to school and I thought, wait, like this was one of the biggest moments of my life, because I had the thing that I will forever thank him for, my best friend telling me, like, stop it. I will not have this anymore. The reality check. And then the other reality check with my mom, who told me, like, no, you should. So it was incredible. It really was incredible.
Life-changing.
Yes, but I was 16. I was lucky enough to have this best friend, lucky enough that he was so angry that he told me in a very, very specific way. And I don't think I would have been able to hear it and understand it if it wasn't said by my friend in that specific moment and on the court, because it was a game. You know, so everything was important. He would have told me at school, I would have maybe heard it, but I wouldn't have understood how important it is. So that's why I'm saying, children, let them be, let them do what they think is best, because usually they do what is best. And then when there is a moment, or when there's an awareness, then you can start talking.
And hear it, yeah. And I think also, like, people pleasing shows up in so many ways. So that, like, overly sorry, but also over explaining. I think that's another big one. I think, like, that's something people do as well. They feel this need to explain. And I know that I have been told by my very good friend, you don't have to. I get it. Like, and I was like, why did I feel? I'm like wondering, why did I feel this need to probably repeat myself and overly explain? And it was because I was so conscious that she understand, so that she doesn't get upset or hurt. So all this, and she's like, no, it's okay. That's your boundary. That's fine. I accept it. And I was like, that's great. So sometimes it, like you said, it shows up for us when we need to hear it.
And also, as I always say, people pleasing is a spectrum. It's not just pleasing someone to get something. It's exactly what you said. It's over-explaining. It is saying sorry. It's having issues saying no when in fact you think no and you feel no, but you still end up saying, yes, okay, we'll go for a drink after work. And you're like, no, your body and everything inside you is screaming no, and you hear yourself saying yes. And spectrum, it's so many things. And people also who put on a mask sometimes, you know, you had a bad day at work, or you even got fired, but you come home to your spouse and this person asks, like, hey, how was your day? And you say, oh, it was completely fine. That is also people pleasing, because you're trying to not upset, not burden the other person. Well, if that is the motive, of course. You're trying to not put any pressure on this other person. That is also people pleasing. So it is so broad and so immense that you could write essays and books and fill libraries.
It's very deep, and I think quite often as people, self-reflection is very important, and sometimes we don't have the time or take the time or want to hold up a mirror to our own behaviors, our own thoughts, as we've discussed earlier, allowing yourself to grieve. I think that's an important part of anything. The highs will be followed by the lows, and if we try to minimize those lows, they'll come out in other ways. But facing that particular pain or that particular grief can be some of the most challenging times people can go through. For those who have faced it, sometimes you might walk away and think, well, that wasn't so bad, but quite often people need the confidence to be able to step into that space. So self-reflection, I think, is very important, and taking the time, whether you meditate or whether you just sit there at the traffic lights and wait for the light to turn green, and then you think to yourself, what have I done with my life, or where is this going? But self-reflection certainly helps us to look at our own behavior and being around others, especially in certain places, workspaces, friendships. You can start to see your behavior mirrored in others around you, which is, I find personally, also helpful to understand how you yourself might be behaving in similar situations. And sometimes it takes a lot of strength to change that behavior, but other times you can quite easily just make a decision. You just didn't realize you were doing it, and you make a decision, and then all of a sudden it's done. But in your work as a coach, do you take clients through these sort of self-reflective moments where you look at their behaviors and then give them strategies on how they could adjust it in the real world?
That's exactly what I do. I don't work in the magical world or in the, I would like, or I wish that things were different. Yeah, I don't work for that. I work here now, today, and see what we have. And it's always practical. I dislike everything that doesn't, I like philosophy. I love philosophy. But when it comes to human behavior, philosophy is important, but it doesn't always get you or give you some practical things to try out. And if I may add, what you just said is absolutely beautiful. And it's just really what I also believe in. Self-reflection is so important. But before I go to self-reflection with my clients, I ask for compassion. Because people-pleasing is not something that you decide one day, today is the day I will start people-pleasing, like a diet or like quitting smoking or something like that. That's not what happened. You started people-pleasing for a lot of people, most of them, as a child because you didn't get what you should have gotten in a way. You developed this to survive and to stay alive and to make it through a family or a condition or a situation that wasn't easy. So first have compassion for yourself and understand that this was not one bad decision that you made and that you're still paying for. No, this is a consequence of a tough situation that you got through and you behaved in a certain way to get love. And now, today, you don't need it anymore. But first, be kind with yourself. Don't go over blaming yourself because, oh my gosh, I did it again. I people pleased again. That's what we do, but it's not necessary. So I start with that, with this, stop feeling guilty about people pleasing. This will take time, but you will get there. I am a living example that you can go from extreme people-pleasing to a lot less people-pleasing, even if sometimes I catch myself thinking like, why was I people-pleasing the lady who tried to sell me some perfume? That happened last week. And I thought, I did it again, but I know that I did it. I know what I should have done differently. And that's fine. I'm not perfect and I don't have to be perfect. Not everything has to be, I'm not a robot. I cannot just push updates and then get rid of the people pleasing. But then from the compassion, as you said so well, you go to self-reflection and you're like, okay, what are other people doing? What is the mirror telling me? But that's the second step. And you need that compassion first. That's my opinion.
And I'd also like to check this one out of curiosity, because I do agree with you that a lot of the time people pleasing stems from, like you said, trauma in childhood. But could it also stem from maybe just liking a reaction at maybe a pivotal time in your childhood that caused you to develop this side of yourself, that you just wanted to be a people pleaser? Not like you said that you made a conscious decision, but it subconsciously, there was some reason you must have liked it. Because I believe that I know people that people please that didn't come from a traumatic or didn't have a traumatic childhood. So I'm wondering, there must be other reasons that it's developed.
So it's very important. So to me, it's very important to distinguish traumatic childhood and, well, I used to say about my childhood that it was perfect and that I was super happy until 5 years ago, when people asked me, how did you grow up? How was your childhood like? I would say, it was perfect. It was great. Because people pleasing, it can come from a traumatic event, yes, but that's not the majority. The majority of people who tend to people please do it because of behavior of parents. And those are repeated patterns. It's rarely one specific moment. It's more day after day repeated patterns of, you're not doing enough. I would like you to do things differently. This is, like you said with the sports example, this is not what you should do. I want you to be better in something else. It's this. It is looking for behaviors and patterns, things that were always there and that you as a child thought, this is completely normal. This happens in every family. And it is not. And the thing is, the brain, when it sees something that is happening all the time, it thinks this is normality. And I will not pay attention to something that is normal. I will pay attention to something that is exceptional. So one of the first things before even going to compassion, with what I do with my clients, is trying to find the behaviors, the patterns, the things that were so present during their childhood without going into a psychoanalysis of 5 years. That's not my point. But I try to make them understand that what they called a normal childhood, was it really normal? Did you really receive love unconditionally, or were there criteria? And it's once you get to the, but wait, I only got attention when I came home with good grades or good, with a good diploma or whatever. And then I got attention. That is an indicator. And then we try to dig a little bit to see what they called normal. I will give just one short example.
Sure.
When people used to ask me, what about your parents? Like, were they always present? Did you have much time with them? I used to say, yes, of course. And now I'm laughing with this because I think, yes, they were present, but they were present physically, not emotionally. They were there in the house. Well, to be discussed, or we can debate this, because my father worked abroad from Monday to Friday, so he was not at home, which is not a problem. And I absolutely do not blame him for that. He had his career, he had his goals. And my mom worked as one of the top managers, I don't know what exactly, in a company. And she dropped us off at school at 7 a.m., which is in Belgium very early. That is the moment when the preschool daycare opens. We were the ones who opened the gates for the activity. But to me, it was normal. And to my brother, it was normal. It was the most normal thing in the world. And I had never questioned it. So she dropped us off when it was night. And she picked us up. There was a lady who helped me with my mathematics that were so catastrophic. And she picked us up at 8 p.m. And at 8 p.m. we had like 15 minutes to go to a supermarket quickly, to grab dinner, to put in the microwave, to eat, and then we would go to sleep. And I said persistently that my parents were present. Well, they were not during the week. And during the weekend, they were so tired of their week. My mom was overtired and she just wanted to sleep. She wanted to be left alone. So I was the one cooking. I hate cooking, but thinking from there. And my father was in his office. He had an office in our house and he was working. And for years, I said my parents were present. Yes, they were present, but they were not emotionally accessible. I could never have a word with them. If I wanted to ask something, it had to be something practical, like, can you open the door, or can I have the car, or then it was okay. But if I wanted to talk about school, it was like, not now. We never did any activities together. And all of this for 35 years, I said, no, I had a perfectly normal childhood. So paying attention to what you call normal, questioning it, you cannot do it just by yourself. You need a friend. You need someone outside of your family bubble to help you see if they were really just present, or if they were there for you.
That's incredible. I mean, I wonder how many people would even stop to think about their normal childhood, or their normal workplace, or their normal married relationships, or relationships with their kids or their friends. Sometimes we're lucky to have a tennis partner who will say stop. But other times I just think to myself, and then there's so many areas of our lives that we would consider normal, probably quite happy to keep going our whole entire lives without ever really taking the time to stop and think about it.
So much self-reflection that I feel like I need to do.
Sorry.
I was thinking about this. So much we should all actually do,
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Sorry, you were going to say.
You were going to say yes.
No, I was just going to say everyone is different and no parent is perfect. I don't blame my parents for everything. I don't hate them. There is nothing, how can I say this? Like, I don't want to go back in time and change things. What happened. But the important thing is, what can I do today? What can I do tomorrow? And that's also something that I work on with my clients. Like, okay, the past is the past. I understand now what was normal was actually not normal at all. And this created all of these behaviors that, in fact, I don't want to people please, but sometimes it's stronger than myself. But what can I do about it? What can I do about it today? And what can I do about it tomorrow? And yes, I will still people please at some moments, but that's okay. I can have a little bit of compassion with myself and just say, like, that's okay. Today you were not perfect. We will just try again tomorrow. That's
Absolutely.
Life.
Accountability, taking ownership of your own behaviors, and then continuing the journey. Look, I think I can just say, wow, what a conversation today, Alexandra. It has been absolutely incredible. I think both me and Michelle got a lot out of it. We opened up about our own lives, and thank you for opening up about yours. As we wrap up, is there any last words, knowledge, or how do people get in touch with yourself if they are looking for some one-on-one coaching?
Yeah, so I am the most busy, let's say, on LinkedIn. So that's where you will see a lot of different things. You will see videos for people who prefer to read and just sit down and read something relaxed, and doesn't always have to be a video. I post also, I have a newsletter. I'm putting all of my videos on YouTube as well. So, and apart from that, there is my website for people who like websites, if they still exist. So yeah, lots of ways to reach me. And if there's one thing I would like to say, maybe as a conclusion, nobody is perfect. And the thing we can never be is perfect. So don't try to be perfect. It's useless. I've tried it for 35 years. It doesn't work. And it will not help you. And the only thing we can do is try to understand what happened, but to do something with that for the future, for tomorrow, and to say, like, okay, I messed up, or I did things because I felt I had to, because otherwise I did not receive any love. But that's not my situation anymore. My life has changed. I'm an adult now. I have my job. I have my relationship. Maybe I have my kids. This is different. And I have the will, and I have the energy, and I have the power, and also the freedom to do things differently. and it is not super complicated. If I just want to demystify everything about people pleasing. It really isn't as complicated as people would imagine. It doesn't take 5 years. It doesn't take deep analysis and becoming a new person. That's not what it's about. It's much easier than that. And everyone can do it.
Beautifully
That's
said.
so good. Thank you. That's such great advice.
Thank you.
I love that. Yeah.
Thank you. Beautifully said again. And we really appreciate taking the time to jump on. We'll set up all those links in our post so that people can reach out, visit the website, look at all the YouTube clips, and be in touch with you on LinkedIn. And I think I can say it for both me and Michelle, we've got to get you on for part 2 if you're ever available for it, because you have so much beautiful energy and so much wisdom in you that we just want to keep sharing that.
Oh, it would be my pleasure. This is like by far the best conversation I ever had. No, really, I'm really honest. This is like you two, you understand what it's about, and you ask like intelligent questions. I love that. It was amazing for me as well. Super grateful. Thank you. The backgrounds are moving, changing, but it's
okay. we gotta get our lighting right.
That's a difficulty,
We'll get there. In the meantime, it's just all about content.
Exactly.
Conversation as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's keep in touch.
1, 2